as you are here for the first time, would you mind introducing yourself to my audience?
Certainly. My name's Gordon, also known as Mr. Love on some platforms. And for the last several years, I've gone to teaching English as a foreign language. And I tend to specialize on pronunciation because I wrote a book which became an international bestseller, including in India, on pronunciation of English, aimed specifically at people who are learning English as a foreign language.
That's wonderful. And I have been to your channel and I also watched one of your videos on Ashutosh's channel. And I noticed how your career switched. I think you've been an engineer, you've been into software development, you've also been into consultancy. And maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were also somewhere in like 2020, something to do with mental health. And then,
COVID.
yeah,
COVID.
and then you switched to teaching English online. Do you ever feel like, when you look back, do you ever get surprised with how your career changed? And also, do you ever, quote unquote, regret some parts? Like maybe you stayed in one career way longer than you needed to. Maybe you were doing something that you didn't love, but you just kept going.
I'm in a very fortunate position that I have loved all the things I've done. So straight out of uni, I was a planning engineer on a power station build. And that is possibly the most intense job I've ever had. We were living, 50 kilometers away from the nearest big city. And so we lived in construction camps, or we lived in caravan sites, or we lived in whatever cottage we could rent.
Yeah.
And you would go to work early in the morning. You would work quite intensely because on a power station build, there's always something going wrong. There's always something that's going to slow it down, and you need to keep to schedule. And then you go back to the construction camp or back to the small village that you're living in. The people to socialize with are the people you know from work. So you talk about work all evening. In our cases, we were young men over a lot of drink. So we'd go to work, talk work, do work, go home, go back out to the pub, talk work, achieve work, go back to sleep, wake up early in the morning to start it all over again. So it was a real hothouse environment. And it turned out that my boss had been pulled out of retirement because he was a bit bored being retired. And he had been board executive in British Steel, which was the whole UK steel industry at the time. So I got this wonderful hothoused work environment, very intense, very demanding. I had a fantastic mentor. I didn't realize it, but those would be the most fun days of my working life. And also probably, if you adjust for inflation, probably the best paying as well. And then I went to London to the finance industry, having done planning, engineering, and software development of project management information systems. I went to London to become a planning and project management consultant internally to the London Stock Exchange, to the world's, certainly outside of the USA, the world's biggest, richest firm of lawyers. And then I moved back to my home country after a number of years, and I worked for a big insurance firm, a famous one. It had been going for 200 odd years. I then moved to a bank which became a global top 10 bank. And so all the time I was being exposed to new things, and I love learning new things. And then I took a career switch to teaching in 2010. I took all my English skills from writing reports at the highest level. I did some citizen journalism. And in 2020, when COVID hit and we could no longer continue teaching with lots of people crammed together in a small space, I discovered the demand for English as a foreign language. And so I took my skills, my teaching skills, my English skills, I put them together. And that was when I thought, oh, I'll write a book. So I haven't regretted any of it. It's all been really interesting, really fun. I've met great people. I've seen interesting places. Why would I complain? I can't complain. I'm blessed.
That's so great. That's so great. Do you think that your technical skills somehow might be helping you as an English teacher now?
Yes. So the reason I have a book, it's a pronouncing dictionary of English. It's an easy to use guide to speaking over 5,000 English words, all the A1, A2, B1, B2 words, and a load of C level words. And it gives easier to use pronunciation guidance, simpler pronunciation guidance, so that you're easier to understand. And it came out of the fact that when I was on a platform called Clubhouse, I was helping people with pronunciation. And over time, it became more consistent. And then I started noting it down. And then it went into a spreadsheet. And then it became a database system. And so, as a software engineer, I've created a lot of tools which I use in my classrooms many times a week. I have a whiteboard app where I can type in a word and it then looks up my dictionary, finds out how to pronounce the word, and then puts the word and its pronunciation in public online so that everyone who's in the classroom can see how to pronounce the word, what the written pronunciation guidance is, while I'm giving the guidance audibly. So yeah, it turns out being a software developer gives you access to writing apps and writing software that then can help you as a teacher.
Yeah.
And I do think I take an engineering-led approach to teaching languages. I'm always interested in what's the most effective way. What's the way that we can be that effective for the least effort, the least time? And so efficiency is really one of those key concerns of an engineer, and I've kept that mindset.
Exactly. No, I mean, I get it. As an engineer, you look at the bigger picture and you just divide them into small, manageable tasks. And just that's just how you see everything, no matter if you're in the technical field or not. Also,
Yes.
problem solving skills help, like what is making a student stay in that loop for so long. There are so many things, and I'm sure you're a great teacher, like the cool one. But so, like,
Thank
when
you.
you first joined Clubhouse, did something surprise you about these English learners? Like something that you would have never thought, like, what's going on? I didn't know that this is one of the ways that people are learning English here.
Yeah, it was a complete surprise to me. I had undergone training as a trauma doula, someone who could look after other people's mental health. Just a support worker, really, of a kind. And the other trauma doulas were supposed to go to Clubhouse to have a discussion about how we would move things forward. And I went there, and I was the only person from the group who turned up. I was the only one. And so eventually I started exploring Clubhouse, some very bizarre rooms in Clubhouse. But what I discovered is that a lot of people in Clubhouse were there to try and get access to native speakers of English so they could improve their English. And the problem is that all the native speakers of English were too busy networking with each other to try and pyramid scheme and network their way to riches. They weren't interested in, as they saw it, wasting their time with the people who wanted to learn English. So the people who wanted to learn English and improve their English ended up together in their own groups.
Yeah.
And the problem is that if you've got people who aren't very good at English and they're practicing with the other people who are not very good at English, there isn't really an awful lot of improvement that can happen. I have a sports coaching background as well. And one of the ways to improve is to spend time with people who are a bit better than you. Not necessarily hugely better, but a bit better than you. But if you're all down at the same level, there isn't that same opportunity for advancement.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a problem. If people are spending genuinely a lot of time there, hoping for improvement, but aren't getting the opportunities, that's a bit of a problem. So my eyes were completely opened to the scale of demand for people wanting to learn English, either because they were wanting to get a visa for study abroad, IELTS 6.5, or they were already working for a company which had international operations. They wanted to get moved to head office or to the main country, or they just wanted to be able to do well in job interviews, or they were pitching to clients. They had clients in other countries. They had suppliers in other countries that they wanted to communicate well with. And all of these things, all of a sudden, I realized what the scale of the issue is. Because if you don't talk to people outside of your own country, you don't notice these things.
Yeah.
And so I fell in with quite a small group of people who were wanting to spend their time helping out in those situations to see if we could help people advance and give people access to native speakers.
Yeah. So, you notice this incorrect guidance being given on the platform, people getting involved with fraudsters or these scammers or with the pyramid scheme. But like, what tips would you give to a learner to kind of stay away from these people and genuinely be able to find a good teacher?
Oh, don't worry. You will not get to interact with the people who are doing the pyramid schemes and the networking. They're all too busy talking to the other native speakers. So these are native speakers talking to native speakers, especially in the USA. But all the people who are looking to improve their English, they're really looking for access to people who will be good at English. I often hear from people in India that most language schools say things like, join us, in 4 months, you'll have C-level English. And you join them and you discover it's the same pathway that everyone else is following, which takes, 6 to 9 months for B1, for A1, 12 months for A2, 12 months for B1, 24 months for B2. That's pretty much, if you're taking the standard number of lessons, that's going to be the progress that you'll make. The other thing is that Clubhouse and these other platforms where you're only interacting with other learners down at your level, maybe your level is A1, maybe your level is B2, maybe your level is somewhere in between. But you'll end up, the B2 learners won't want to be with you if you're an A1 learner. Mm. So even the learners kind of stratify out. But the great thing is, if you go to these platforms, you will get the opportunity to talk, and you will gain the confidence to talk in public using this second language or this foreign language. And that confidence, which leads to motivation, is probably the most valuable thing you can get at the beginning, because the single biggest predictor of your success as a language learner is your motivation level.
Yeah.
If you're motivated, you will make it. If you're not motivated, it's like living somewhere wintry and snowy, and you've decided that your New Year's resolution is going for a run every day, and you look out the window and it's cold and it's dark and there's snow lying on the ground and your feet are going to be frozen when you arrive home, and you think, I'm going to stay in the warm bed. I'm not going to go out for a run today. The motivation is just so low, you don't do it. So if you've got high motivation, if your confidence is good, you get better motivation. And better motivation means you will practice more. Practicing more means you get better. Then the next time you go to talk to people, you'll get better feedback, or probably just an absence of negative feedback. If you talk to people and they say, what? No, repeat that again. No, I didn't understand you. No, that's demotivating. Yeah. So when that stops happening, everything gets better. Your confidence just soars. So confidence is a great thing you can get from these peer-to-peer discussions. And then how do you find a good teacher? My problem is that one of the things I say to people genuinely is, for the specific aspect of phonetics, which is undertaught and underappreciated, i.e. the making the sounds, hearing the sounds, using the rhythms of English, I can get you to B2 C1 level in 3.5 months. If you do 3 hours of practice a week, 2 hours of class, 3 hours of practice a week, and you will genuinely get to the phonetics of English B2 C1 level in 3.5 months. And unfortunately, that puts me in a very bad position to say, all these teachers who promise that they will fix you in 4 months, that's the sign of a scammer. But if they're teaching grammar and they're teaching vocabulary and they're not letting you know that the journey from A0 to the end of B2 is, 4 years, then be suspicious. That's my...
Yeah.
It's a slow process, so make sure it's a fun process. Get a teacher who you enjoy spending time with, because you'll probably want to spend an hour a week with them at least every week for 4 years.
Yeah.
That's quite a commitment. I mean, I know I was being told yesterday that there's a famous story in the news in India recently about a couple who got married and then the same day they split up. So 4 years is much longer than that marriage, certainly. So get a good teacher, listen to the good teacher, practice, practice, practice. That's my advice.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you know or not, but there's actually a huge debate whether you should choose a native English teacher or a non-native one. I don't know if you know that or not, but like as a native speaker yourself, what's your take on that? What's your perspective? Which one should students prefer?
I give different advice in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka than I give in most countries. In India, a lot of the use of English is to talk to other Indians. It's not actually to talk out to China or to talk out to Afghanistan or to talk out to South America. And there is a thing called an interlanguage. I don't know if you're familiar with the term. But
No.
it's basically if you have one language, your own first language, and you have the target language, most people end up speaking something that's halfway in between. This is what we mean by an interlanguage. For instance, in Thailand, they call it Thaiglish. In Indonesia, they call it Bahasa English. I have a friend from Maharashtra, and she lives in the UK now. And when she speaks, every word she uses is an English word. So that's good. You'd think that's the communication gap sorted, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Every word is English vocabulary. But she uses Marathi pronunciation. She uses Marathi methods of emphasis. So Marathi, unlike English, is a pressure-stressed, stressed-timed language, i.e., when I talk in my accent, every so often one part of a word or one part of a sentence is louder and slower. But there are lots of Indian languages where everything is just quite the same and every syllable lasts the same amount of time. And if you want to emphasize a syllable, you make it last longer. It often happens at the end of a sentence.
Yeah.
Not where it would happen in English. English, more than half the understandability comes from this rhythm. So if you're only focusing on the grammar or the vocabulary, and you're missing out the pronunciation, and you're missing out this very important rhythm element, your understandability becomes much lower. Now, if you're talking to other people from India, this is an advantage. Because if you're speaking this interlanguage, which is using rhythms and the sounds of your local language, your first language, Even if you're kind of going from Tamil to Bangla, something like that, the languages tend to be quite similar in lots of aspects. Different in detail, like English to French, but similar in many aspects. And so if you're using the sounds of your language, and the sounds of your language are the same as the other person's language, you understand each other very well.
Yeah.
And then if you start using the sounds of English, everyone says to you, you are not authentic. Why aren't you speaking in a more authentic way? Speak more like an Indian guy. And that's great if you're speaking to other people in India or roundabout. Once you want to speak to people in China or South America or the UK or the USA, Canada, you need to be able to move all the way across. Otherwise, you're like my friend. She uses English words, Marathi pronunciation, Marathi emphasis, Marathi grammar, Marathi word choice. So she's using English words, but the pronunciation, the stress patterns, the grammar, the word choice, they're all Marathi. Every single word is English, but only 20% of it really counts as English. 80% of it is really Marathi. And so when she talks, consequently, people don't understand her. And she gets frustrated.
Yeah.
This is a woman who has a very powerful, very professional, very high-level career in India. And she's now in the UK. Unless she hasn't yet managed to convert her professional qualifications, so the jobs she does are not at the same level as before. And she does find it frustrating that people don't understand her. And I have this conversation with her many times. I said, well, if you move from speaking a Marathi English interlanguage into speaking English in an English-speaking country, people will understand you more. And then you wouldn't have the problem. So if you're only talking within India, interlanguages are great, interlanguages are fine. But if you are speaking something, sometimes people call it Hindlish or Maratlish, and you speak to someone from Thailand and they're speaking Thaiglish, turns out that the bits of the Thai language which overlap with English and the bits of, say, Hindi that overlap with English are different. So the English that you speak if you're halfway from Hindi to English and the English that you speak if you're halfway from Thai to English don't overlap.
Yeah.
The same with Mandarin Chinese, same with Spanish. And then you have bigger problems when you go to communicate with people who have a very different first language from you. So my advice strongly is, if you're speaking in India, doesn't really matter. But if you're learning English because you want to get a visa for study abroad, if you're wanting to get a work visa, an H-1B for the USA, say, if you're wanting to work remotely for an English-speaking country and you want to pass the job interview, if you're going to do pitching meetings to international clients, or you're having discussions with suppliers, or you're in an international company and you're on an international project team, and you want to be listened to, not just present in the room, but listened to, helps you enormously if you move all the way to actual English, using the sounds of English and the methods of emphasis of English, the rhythms of English. That is a huge advantage for you. But it's a disadvantage if you're only staying in India and only talking to other Indian people.
Yeah.
It's almost unique in that. Almost everywhere else, people want the more internationalized version so that they can talk to people all around the world. Many Indians would prefer the rest of the world spoke English the way Indians do, and are quite happy to tell the rest of the world that as well. But I think the whole point of standards is there is a standard, you move towards it.
Yeah.
It helps everyone.
No, actually, the mother tongue influence is real. I'm from the north part of India, and I was interacting with somebody from the south part. And
Yes.
so I called the lady. I wanted to book a hotel for my family. And so she had this thick accent. She was talking in English. But for a second, I thought, is she really talking in English? Because it sounds like it, but I'm not really able to understand anything at all. So it became frustrating for the both of us. I kept asking for her to repeat, and then we just ended up talking on Messenger because we couldn't understand each other. So I get what you're saying. And also, so
That's
I'm,
exactly the issue.
yes,
She was from the south, and so her mother tongue, maybe it was, well, it could have been any of the languages from
yeah.
southeastern India. You're, I'm presuming, then from the north or the northwest,
Yeah, I'm from the
maybe around Delhi?
Northwest. Yeah. I'm from Rajasthan.
You're
It's,
from Rajasthan.
yeah, the area wise, the biggest state of the country.
And what's the mother tongue in Rajasthan?
Hindi, it's Hindi.
Mainly Hindi.
Yeah.
And it generally is. There's a kind of diagonal line across India. And if you're
Yeah.
above and to the left is mainly Hindi. If you're
Yeah.
below and to the right, it could be any one of
Yeah,
lots of
it's
languages.
Tamil, Telugu, there's Malayalam,
Kerala,
there's Marathi.
Malayalam, yeah.
Yeah.
Sinhalese, if you go to Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And it turns out the further apart you are, if you're in the far northwest and they're in the far southeast, there is a genuine difference in the mother tongues. And if you're using the sounds and the rhythms of your mother tongue to produce your English, then the issue of mutual intelligibility becomes really quite major, as you've discovered when you were trying to book a hotel. Did you get the hotel in the end?
I did. I mean, but I had to text her. So I exactly get what you're saying. This must be the situation of the woman that you mentioned that is from Maharashtra and is living in the UK. So I get it.
Yes.
Yeah, mostly these kind of people, they learn English much, much later in life, like maybe in their 20s or 30s. Because for me, I could say, like, I've been in English medium school, I've studied there. So the mother tongue influence of Hindi is not that strong in English because of that. So all credits go to my school, honestly, for that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, what's the most common mistake pattern that you've noticed among the English learners that is maybe keeping them in that loop forever? Something that you just wish English learners understand in the beginning so they don't make that mistake.
Genuinely, I think phonetics is undertaught and underappreciated. Most people, when they learn English as a foreign language, are being taught by someone who learned English as a foreign language. Often, often the easiest thing to teach is grammar and vocabulary, because there are books for this. Just as you and the hotel booker, you ended up falling back on written forms of communication. It's easier to teach the written forms, reading, writing, grammar, vocabulary. You can give people books, you can point to the page and say, do that exercise. Often, the teachers who are teaching English as a foreign language are aware that they've had insufficient exposure to the pronunciation, the rhythm of English, the intonation patterns even. And so they deliberately stick to teaching from the book.
No.
Or there's another common problem. The teacher is not aware that they don't speak good English. And so they actually give as a role model something which is the opposite of English pronunciation, the opposite of English rhythms. Now, there is a lot of research done on learning languages, both learning first languages and learning second languages and foreign languages. This is my favorite book on the topic. How Languages Are Learned by Lightbound and Spada. If you're an English teacher, I recommend this book. If you're just an English learner, it's actually, if you're one of the really interested learners, it's worth a read as well. It's full of all the myths about what people think language learning is, and also what the research tells us it is. And it turns out, if you learn a language before the age of 12, you'll soak up the grammar and the pronunciation and the rhythms, the intonation, like a sponge. At the age of 12 or 13, as we go through puberty, our brain gets hardwired. Everything we've learned about language up till then gets locked in. We stop being able to soak things up like a sponge. If you've ever heard anyone saying, learning languages is easy, just be like a child, just soak it up. Have you ever heard anyone say that?
So many people say that every single day.
Yes. And it's not true. The brain changes at age 12. And from age 14 onwards, we've lost that ability to just listen and soak it up, but we gain an adult superpower. We get the opportunity to learn explicitly. If someone tells us a thing, we can go, oh, let me think about that. Oh, and I'll practice, I'll memorize, I'll put it in my mind. Okay, I now know it. We can actually, as grown-ups, learn vocabulary faster than children do. Children learn about 50 words per month. They do it over a 12-year period, so at the end of 12 years, they've got a decent vocabulary. Adults can learn faster than that. Adults can learn more strongly than that. So my advice to everyone is try not to learn like a child. Try to learn like an adult. If you're an adult, learn the way that adults' brains work. And so you want to be told things or to read things that actually state what it is you're learning explicitly. You want to consider those things. You want to spend time considering them, and then you want to go back and reconsider them. There's a great pattern: 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, and then every month again after that. I call that the 5 ones technique. And then if you want to embed the skills, and this is because we learn things and then we forget things. Have you ever heard of the learning curve?
The learning curve, I'm not sure if I know that.
The learning curve just means that as you learn stuff, you learn more and you learn more and you learn more. Then eventually you'll probably plateau and you won't make any improvement. But everyone, as well as being on the learning curve, is also on a forgetting curve. The brain's always looking to get rid of the clutter to make room for new things.
Yeah.
So your brain says, oh, haven't used that for, well, we learned it an hour ago. We've never used it again. Good, I can get rid of it. Don't need that anymore. So if you practice it after an hour, your brain says, oh, that would be useful. Let's hold on to it for a bit longer.
Yeah.
I'll get rid of it tomorrow. I'll keep it today. I'll get rid of it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes. If you practice again tomorrow, your brain says, oh, that is important. Don't want to get rid of it tomorrow. I'll hold on to it for a few days, maybe a week. So if you practice again, say 2, 3 days later or a week later, your brain says, oh, I'll hold on to it for even longer this time. I'll hold on to it for a month. So if you can make sure that you retain the things that you learn, because the initial learning is easy, keeping it maintained in your mind, making it memorable for the long term, that's very important.
Yeah.
And then for phonetics, there's a physical skill element. We're breathing, we're moving our lips, we're moving our tongue, we're moving our jaw muscles, we're using our breath muscles, and there are muscles at the back of the mouth which are originally evolved for swallowing. And we use those a lot when talking. If we want to use all of these muscles in the way that people who speak a different language do, we have to learn to use these muscles differently. It's like learning to play the guitar when we're young. Great, we can play the guitar, it's fabulous. And then someone says, now play the piano. And if we strum the piano keys we're not going to get good music.
Yeah.
We need to learn the chord fingerings. And so it's a completely different use of the muscles. It's still our hands, and we're still using the finger muscles, but we're now using them in a very different way. And so that's like moving from, say, Hindi or Marathi to English. We're still going to use our tongue and our lips and our jaw muscles and our breath muscles and the muscles of the soft palate at the back of our mouth, but we're going to use them in different ways. And we need to practice that. And I recommend people, instead of practicing for, say, I don't know if you know this approach, but lots of people put many hours aside in one block once a week.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to do my English practice on Sunday afternoon. It's much better if you split it into small pieces. If you practice for a few minutes at a time, several times a day, and you make sure that one of those practices is not long before you go to sleep, you will probably spend less time and your rate of progress will be higher. So if you practice 1 hour a week that way, it's something like 10 or 20 times better than having 1 4-hour block. You're only practicing for 1 hour in total, as opposed to 4 hours in total each week, and yet you're going much, much faster. I know which one I would prefer to do as an engineer concerned with efficiency. I would prefer to spend 1 hour a week and make fast progress than spend 4 hours a week and make slow progress.
Yeah. No, as somebody who holds an engineering degree myself, I get it. I agree with you because honestly, that's how I gave my exams. So instead of choosing an entire block of hours to study, I would just split them. It would be much, much easier to understand the technical concepts and everything. So now that we have discussed about the mistakes that learners make, what's one common habit that you've seen among English learners that are able to pick up basic English quickly?
Spread study, as we've just discussed.
Yeah.
Extended pauses between reviews, as we discussed, the 5-1s technique and the 3-3s technique. They're great. You also want to make sure that you do phonetics early, as I've touched on before, because if you can rewire your brain to hear the sounds of English as first-class concerns, between 0 and 12, we soak up our mother tongue like a sponge. We have what are called phonemes that we learn, little buckets of meaningful sound. And when we hear a sound, by the age of 12 or 13, your brain is hardwired to either say, I know that sound is meaningful, it's this sound, maybe ah or eh. This sound, that's just noise. Get rid of it. And the problem is that when we speak to people who speak with other languages, a lot of the sounds they use are noise to us. Our brain spends a lot of effort trying to get rid of the sound or to say, well, they said cat, but really, I know that that's not a real word. They must have meant cat. A cat sat on a mat. So I'll convert that sound from cat into cat. And if you do that for every sound that the foreigner says to you, that's exhausting. You're not consciously aware of this, but your brain's doing a lot of work underneath the surface. It's exhausting. So you end up, your brain basically tires out after, depending on what your skill level is, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. If you can rewire your brain so that it hears, it can't say it on me, and you just accept it as meaningful sounds without having to go through this second translation effort, then listening to native speaker material becomes effortless. And so you can listen to a 6-hour podcast. I mean, I'm sure lots of the people who view your channel will listen to a 6-hour podcast or watch a 3-hour movie, and they think that they're paying attention for 3 hours or 6 hours. In actual fact, they're listening and paying attention for the first 10, 20, 30 minutes, and then their mind starts to wander. What did my friend say to me yesterday? I haven't been able to let go of it. Or, what shall I have for lunch tomorrow? Or, oh, I need to remember to do the shopping. And your brain wanders because it's no longer focused on the stream of native speech that you thought you were listening to.
Yeah.
So you've used 6 hours, but you haven't had 6 hours of learning. You've had maybe 10, 20 minutes of learning. And so if you can rewire your brain to accept those sounds, and like I say, you can, if you're really dedicated, do it in about a month. Most people aren't that dedicated. They only want to spend 3 hours a day, not 12 hours a day. And so in 3.5 months, it's entirely possible to rewire your brain that way. That way, when you speak to people, you're using the sounds of English, the rhythms of English. They understand you better. The feedback's excellent. Your confidence goes up. Your motivation goes up. You practice more. So that's a great feedback loop. And also, you can listen to a 6-hour podcast and you're still paying attention at the end of 6 hours because it's effortless.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you get from 10 minutes a day of your 6 hours of listening to 6 hours a day of benefit. And you start picking up the grammar and the vocabulary so much more easily when you can listen to large blocks of English at a time. So, and because almost no one gets taught phonetics, pronunciation, rhythm, the rest of it, it's really difficult for them to understand what a huge difference it can make in their language learning journey.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm always trying to tell people, learn the phonetics. Try to do it early, because then the rest of your journey is just going to be faster and easier. And faster and easier is going to make you feel better about the journey, and you'll stick on the path.
Yeah.
And this is all because I spent all that time on Clubhouse discovering the way that people normally learn languages and thinking, as an engineer, there has to be a better way. Yeah. There must be a better way. And then I went off and decided what my opinion is of the better way.
So, as an English teacher yourself, Gordon, what's your favorite thing about teaching?
I always used to worry that I would get bored. When I first started teaching English, turns out I ran a room in Clubhouse called One-to-One Lessons with a Native Speaker. And people would come up and they would ask the same 13 questions all the time. Week after week, day after day, month after month, same 13 questions. And I thought, how many years can I cope with this before I think, no, ask me a different question? And it turns out it never happened, because every time you get the chance to work with a student and help them proceed, their triumphs are your triumphs. So every day's teaching, I find, is an opportunity to help someone make progress and to take joy with them in the progress that they make. And so that's my favorite part of teaching. That, and the fact that if I kind of take a step back, I think English is the world's telephone system. What I'm trying to do is get everyone so that they can use the telephone to everyone else around the world. And that feels pretty purposive. And people look for mastery. You want to get better at the skills you're using in daily work life. You want autonomy. You want the opportunity to decide what work you take on, when you do it, what approach you take, and purpose. That this work means something to society, to culture, to the wider world, or to the community round about you. And I find that teaching English as a foreign language provides me with all of those things. 3 years ago, I was not the teacher I am today. I've got much better in my teaching skills. My teaching skills were already pretty good. My English skills were already pretty good, but now my skills of teaching English specifically are much better. My knowledge of the weird corners of English has grown enormously. And I get the chance to choose what work I do, and that's a gift. And I hope I'm helping make the world a better place by doing it all.
Oh, beautifully said. Love that. Absolutely love that. And now let's talk about your dictionary that you chose to release. So, what was the thought procedure behind it? What maybe you noticed a pattern in learners and you thought that maybe they do need this again and again. So, why not just publish a dictionary? So, what was the thought procedure? I want to know everything.
Always a dangerous question when you're talking to me, because I'm happy to tell you everything, but I'll try and keep to a relatively high level. I was on Clubhouse initially, and then I moved to High Local, then I moved to Tandem. So I'm still active on all three platforms. I also used Hello Talk and Free for Talk as well. And what I noticed is that people were talking, but their pronunciation often was so different to the English target that it was very difficult for me to understand them. What's more interesting is often when people are from two very different first language backgrounds, they're speaking with the overlap of, say, Spanish and English, and the overlap of Mandarin Chinese and English. And I hear the English parts, and they hear the Spanish parts or the Mandarin parts. And the Mandarin person only hears the Mandarin parts. The Spanish speaker only hears the Spanish parts. And if there are no, and Spanish is a very different language from Mandarin. So they find it really difficult to understand each other. And I hear the English parts in both of them. So I know what both of them are trying to say. And I often ended up interpreting for them. Now, one of them speaking English, they think. One of them speaking English, they think. And I, as a native English speaker, can understand both of them to varying degrees sometimes. But they're not understanding each other.
No.
And so the pronunciation I realized is key. Most of the communication we do is spoken. For instance, when you went to book your hotel room, you went onto the phone, first of all, and you attempted to talk, because that's the natural way humans communicate.
Yeah.
When that didn't work, that's when you started writing. But in language learning, language teaching, we teach people generally as if most of the communication is written. We teach people to read pages. We teach people to write paragraphs. We give them books to learn from. And it turns out that most of the things we do is speaking. If we go to a job interview, we don't submit our written answers to the questions, and they don't give us a sheet of paper with all the interview questions on it. If we go to the doctor and we're in a foreign country, we don't ask the doctor to write down everything they're saying instead of talking to us. If we're pitching to a client who lives in a foreign country, we don't say, do you know what? We're not going to have the pitching meeting. I'll just send you the slide deck. You read my slide deck, send me a letter on how you respond to the slide deck. We don't do that. If you're in an engineering team meeting and someone says, I've got this great new idea, it's not, well, we only discuss new ideas if you've submitted a formal report. Normally the formal report comes after you've had the discussion of the idea and someone has said, that sounds good, I'd like to know more, write it up for me. And so we kind of teach backwards. We teach the reading and the writing more than we teach the talking. And so I was surrounded by people who often had good grammar, good vocabulary. Often they were teachers and they had excellent pedagogy. They had an excellent philosophy of why they wanted to teach, but none of their teachers had spoken English as a first language. And they didn't speak English as a first language. They spoke maybe an Egyptian interlanguage, Egyptian Arabic, or a different first language, interlanguage. And so a lot of the time I was spending giving pronunciation guidance. A lot of the time. And partly that was because these other teachers who had been teachers of English much longer than I had, they were better at grammar and teaching vocabulary than I was, I thought. Turned out not to be true on closer inspection. For instance, there was one time I reviewed someone's teaching materials and there were 17 learning points. 11 of them were correct. That was an eye-opener for me. It is very difficult to be diplomatic enough to have people take that on board positively as a message. Turns out you have to be extremely diplomatic. I'm not always diplomatic. I'm sometimes an engineer. And so most of the time I was giving pronunciation guidance, and I would be typing into the text chat, here's the word, here's some written guidance on how to pronounce it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a thing called the International Phonetic Alphabet.
Oh, God, no. I haven't.
In the early 1800s, people who spoke English realized that spelling in English bears no relationship to the pronunciation of English. For instance, the letters O-U-G-H can be pronounced 13 different ways, I've counted. The vowel sounds A, E, I, O, U, 5 vowel letters. They've got 5 names, A, E, I, O, U. There are 55 ways of spelling those 5 sounds in English. It's a nightmare. And it's a nightmare for native speakers as well as for foreign learners. So there are now, there were about already 9 or 10 phonetic writing systems for English in existence. The most famous is the International Phonetic Alphabet. It gets used in many university courses for pronunciation. But it's an alphabet of 165, something like 165 characters that you have to learn. Each character makes one sound. But it's really designed for people who are teaching or researching into languages. If you're researching into multiple languages, you want to be able to write all the sounds. So you learn that. And the characters, you can't type them with a standard keyboard. They often don't display in the standard fonts for English. And so I thought there has to be a better way, especially for people who are just learning English because they want to access talking to other people. Just use normal characters. Just use the sounds that have been lifted from other words. For instance, the sound A, as in
Are we connected?
hello. Sorry about the interruption. I don't know
no
what
worries. Happened. Was there some internet issue?
I think there must have been, because the screen went blank and I didn't hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So please continue.
Oh yeah. So I was giving the same pronunciation guidance.
Yeah.
And the guidance I was giving, for instance, I would take the A sound from say, pay, day, and I would use the AY letter combination to represent that sound.
Mm.
That way people knew it was the A sound and not one of the other 13 ways of pronouncing. And after I did that for 6 months, I thought, this is very consistent. I should note it down so I'm not having to type it from scratch every time. And that led to me developing my whiteboard app, which I use in my classes. I type in an English word. The software then looks up the pronunciation guidance and publishes it to the people in the classroom. And gradually it got more sophisticated. Now I have software. I feed it a whole chapter of English text, and it looks up every single word in the text and converts it into phonetic. So I can, for instance, recently I have a reading group, which is free to access on High Local every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. India Standard Time. And we go through a novel, and I convert the entire novel into phonetic guidance as well. So I discovered that no one else was teaching pronunciation very much. When they were teaching pronunciation, maybe they're an Egyptian who was taught by an Egyptian and they're teaching people from Afghanistan how to pronounce. And the unfortunate thing is they're teaching Egyptian pronunciation of English, not what they think they're teaching. Because they didn't hear English before the age of 12, so they can't hear the difference between the sounds they're making and the sounds they're hearing from movies. And so I started doing that a lot. I wrote them all up. Once I got to a few hundred words, I thought, I wonder what the 1,000 most popular and useful words of English are. And I looked it up online. And I got about 10 different lists. And it turned out they didn't agree with each other, but there was a core that they all agreed on, and then they all had extra words. So I typed up all of those words. And I typed up phonetic guidance for all of those words. So that's me now going on 2,000 words. I thought, well, what are the 3,000 most popular words? What are the 4,000 most popular words? And I kept going, and I kept going. When I reached over 5,000, and I had all the A1 words, all the A2 words, all the B1 words, all the B2 words, I thought, I should publish this. Apart from anything else, maybe I'll become famous. Maybe I'll become rich. I haven't become famous. I haven't become rich. But I have become very happy. And that's great. And so I published the dictionary. Most dictionaries are in alphabetical order. But because I'd written it as a database, I could put it into lots of other orders. So I grouped all the words that had one vowel sound, maybe the vowel sound A. I put them as an extra chapter. I put all the words in pronunciation order. So if you wanted all the words that start with D or F or V, they're all together. And you can practice them. And I also put them together in order of difficulty. So if you're learning A1 English, all the A1 words are together. And then you can move on to A2 as you go through. Turns out, if you focus on the correct words, you only need 900 words to go from complete beginner to completing A1. You only need another 800 words to go from the end of A1 to the end of A2. 700 words more gets you to the end of B1. 1,300 more words gets you to the end of B2. So you can get to advanced English. You can be starting on to C1 English. You've only learned 3,700 words. Most learners have already learned about 4,500, 5,000 words, and they're still A2, B1. So they've spent a lot more time learning, but they've only made half the progress. What I'd like to see is everyone spend less time learning, more time progressing. And so the dictionary came out, and I hope that will be the first in a series of books. The dictionary costs 250 rupees, in India, and you can get the first 10 chapters for free as an ebook. So I urge everyone to read the 10 free chapters. I hope it will transform your English learning journey and speed up the rest of your journey. I genuinely hope that. And that's what keeps me motivated to keep going day after day.
Yeah.
What was the question? I think you asked me, well, how did I get into publishing the dictionary? I built it up word by word, literally word by word. I now have a bank of 16,000 words. And so I'm going to be publishing new versions of the dictionary sometime soon. This year, I'm going to publish my course book, a course book on how to pronounce English. Later this week, my first YouTube videos on pronunciation are going live. I'm really excited about that.
Yay, looking forward to it. And what's the best way to consume your dictionary? A method that somebody could take full advantage of it.
If you're at A1, look at the A1 words and look at the vowel sections. So you can go through day, pay, say, te, re, be, he, lay, may, way, all of it. And then you can go to the next letter, vowel letter, the letter E, and you can have words like be, to be or not to be, or bee, a small insect that flies about making a buzzing sound. Zzz. And then he, a masculine pronoun. And you can just go through the list of all the E words. Then the list of the I words, eye, eyeball, eyelash, eyebrow. You can go through the O words like goat and coat. You can take it bit at a time and you can build up your skill. It's really a reference book and a book for generating your own practice lists. Because if you can practice the skills of pronunciation for the individual sounds, that gives you the components that you can put together to make sentences. So that's what the dictionary is supposed to be. Really, and I'd hate to admit this, really the dictionary should be the second book in the series, and it should be, the first book should really be how to learn English. Here's how the dictionary helps you. But I wrote the dictionary first, and now I realize I need to write the other book. So you can use it to generate your own practice lists by difficulty, by vowel sound, by pronunciation. And of course, if you encounter a word and you don't know how to pronounce it, you can look it up alphabetically and see the phonetic guidance.
Yeah.
So it's a versatile book, but it's a book for you to generate your own practice lists from.
Yeah. Okay, so we have come at the end of the session, and it was one of the best sessions I've ever had, genuinely saying. And it was super insightful. I loved talking to you, loved connecting to you. And yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, Niyati. It was a lovely conversation, and thank you for letting me wander from topic to topic.
Yeah, okay. So have a great morning. I suppose I don't know what time it is over there, but I assume
yes, still morning.
Yeah.
Still morning.
Yeah. So have a great day ahead. And yeah, wishing good luck to you for the second book and the entire series.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I look forward to being in contact with you again in future.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to have you on my channel at some point.
For sure, 100%. I would love to be on your channel. Yeah.
Wonderful. I look forward to the next time we talk.
Me as well. Okay. Have a great day ahead. Bye, Gordon.
Bye.